Trish and Rob McGregor welcome you to a place where all kinds of phenomena flourish. Voices whisper ancient secrets, signs and symbols are abundant. UFOs, ETs, ghosts, and even the dead move about freely. Here we meet authors, researchers, and investigators of the mysterious, the strange, and of the inexplicable anomalies that surround us. Step out of the everyday world and take a journey into the mystical underground. And if you guys are ready, we'll start in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Mystical Underground. Thank you for joining us. This is Rob McGregor.
And Trish McGregor.
And our producer and tech magician, John Posey. You can go to themysticalunderground.com, where we make regular blog posts and where you can find out about our books. Among them are Phenomena, Harnessing Your Psychic Abilities, The Secrets of Spirit Communication, Sensing the Future, and Aliens in the Backyard. Trisha's latest novel is White Crows, and Rob has recently completed releasing the audio edition of Indiana Jones and the Staff of Kings. Coming out later this month is our new book, The Shift, Reports from the Mystical Underground, in which we explore the ongoing shift in awareness of millions of people around the world who recognize that in spite of what we see in the everyday world, we are all energetically entangled at a deeper level of consciousness and possibly in the midst of a shift to a higher evolutionary state of mind.
We hope.
Awareness.
Our guest today is Suzanne Cunningham. Going through a childhood filled with anomalous experiences, Suzanne walked the road her soul chose for her words. After an out-of-body NDE in her early 20s, she went on to have a spontaneous Kundalini opening. As is sometimes the case, the experience left her struggling through a spiritual emergency that forced her to come to terms with her gifts and deal with a difficult childhood. Beginning her journey with A Course in Miracles and studying everything she could to bring deeper insight and understanding, Suzanne eventually sought out an advanced spiritual mentor and found her in Reverend Sheila Applegate, an internationally known teacher, healer, and psychic. Switching gears and ultimately leaving her career in high-end fashion, Suzanne continued to read, study, and challenge herself with an emphasis on spirituality, healing, energy, and consciousness. Suzanne has been a Reiki master, teacher, and practitioner since 2006. Her commitment to reaching into the unknown with faith and courage, using her personal experiences to connect and help others, and spending time with cutting-edge thought leaders and teachers continues today. Welcome, Suzanne. It's great to finally meet you.
Welcome,
Thank
Suzanne.
you so much. It's so nice to meet the two of you finally, too.
All right.
I have to say that Trish was kind enough to gift me with The Shift, and I am voraciously working my way through it, and it's wonderful.
Okay, great. Glad
It's
to
funny
join
you
us.
mentioned that Zen 666.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we've
know.
mentioned that a few times on the podcast. That one story has come up. Yeah.
It's funny.
Okay. Well, I'll start, Rob. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Those anomalous experiences from childhood, can you share a couple of them?
Sure.
Yeah.
I was trying to think back so long ago. When I was a kid, I would have, I think they were visitations, people kind of coming and showing up in the bedroom, elderly people that maybe I met at my grandparents' church or out in the world. And I didn't have a clue as to what to make of all of that. And of course was terrified and just hid it under the covers. By the time I reached like middle school, I had a dream, and I dreamt that one of my classmates passed. And when I showed up at school the next day, that had in fact happened. And, typical of every seventh grader in the world, I thought it was all about me, because that's what we do. And we think, oh my goodness, do I now have the power to be able to,
Make people die?
create mayhem in people's lives? And I was terrified. And so I think I essentially began the shutdown around there. This was I was born in 1960. So this is the early 70s. There's no path, there's no internet, there's
Yeah.
no way for me to figure out what's happening. And my dad was a bit accepting and a bit, he was really open-minded and a little bit more intellectual. And he sort of helped me to feel like I wasn't completely crazy. But again, there was still no path forward, and I didn't know what to do with any of it.
So Suzanne, wasn't it through a connection with the afterlife, somebody from the afterlife, that the reason that you first contacted Trish?
It actually was. And it's funny because I would never call myself a medium. People who do mediumship work are so highly gifted. But more than that, it's a commitment to teaching and helping others in grief. And I have my own things that I'm interested in doing and to support the world and humanity. But that is not the path of that I chose. So, but occasionally someone will come through if they're a very strong spirit. Generally, someone who has, if they themselves were explorers of spirituality, or they themselves were had a little more experience in this realm, they'll come through. It's really interesting. But most of the time, I have really strong protection. I've learned over the years that to maintain that is to maintain my sanity. And I don't want, people bumping in and out all night long. That just doesn't work for me. So, yeah, it was really unusual that
it was Scott Colburn,
yes,
who was a podcaster, and we were on his show actually in 2019, a couple of months before he died. His death was unexpected. So explain what you picked up.
So he kept showing up. At first, I was just aware of the name. And I used to listen to his podcast. So I thought, well, that's odd, but just odd of random. And that's to me one of the signs, the cardinal signs of something being an anomalous experience, is you start to notice that it just shows up out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. It's not like I was thinking about him. I mean, there was just no reason. And suddenly his name kept popping into my head. And I thought, well, that's odd. So I did what I often do in these circumstances. I went to the internet and I Googled him, and I realized that he had indeed passed. Somebody had mentioned that they thought he did, but I hadn't really even paid that much attention. I didn't know if he'd retired or what the situation was. And I saw his picture. And when I saw his picture, it was like the key went into the lock and everything opened up.
Oh, so you actually saw him in your head?
Yes, mm-hmm. I did. Well, at first I was, I saw the picture on Google. And then once I did that, then I saw him. And he was affable and kind and a good soul. And he really just wanted to see if I could connect him with his daughter, and his son too. But his daughter was the one who was at the forefront of his mind, and therefore mine. So I thought, well, I have no idea how to do any of this. And then I saw the flash of the book. I don't know that I have it here. I should have it here. I should have brought it, but I saw the cardinals on the front of the book.
Oh, so the Secrets of Spirit Communication.
Yes. Yeah. So he flashed that cover on, and I was like, oh, I think I know who they are. And so one thing led to another, and I found your website and reached out to you, Trish and Rob, and that's kind of how this all happened.
Right.
That's fascinating.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating too that he held up the book.
I know.
But
I think it was because, so this is what I've learned about spirit communication. They use whatever is in your brain. And I had the book. I had read the book.
Yeah.
So he must, I don't know how they know what we know, but I've had it happen so many times that I've learned. I just don't question it anymore. It's like, and when I teach students, a lot of what I'm teaching them is to make sure that you're reading as much as possible, and that you're expanding your life as much as possible, and your ideas, and get creative, because spirit uses everything in order to communicate with us. So that's what I felt like happened. And then it led me in the direction of connecting with you all.
And I had done a chart for his daughter. He had hired me to do a chart for her. So I had her email. So I wrote her and sent her the message. I never heard anything back, but at least
Hmm.
she got the message.
Right. Well, we did our part, and then sometimes that's all you can do. And he literally thanked me when it was done, and you and I had connected, and he knew that that had happened. He thanked me, and then he just receded, and I have not seen hide nor hair of him since then.
Huh.
No sense,
interesting.
no word, nothing, just gone. So
So-
I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it's an email account she doesn't use anymore. And maybe
Yeah, that
now
could
his
be.
next job is to get her to go to this email account that she's stopped using, or threw away, one of those throwaway emails.
So do you think they have books on the other side then? I mean, you sound
No,
like-
I don't think they need to. I think they have ours.
Yeah.
They're peering over our shoulders, just doing downloads. I'm assuming that it's no different than here. We get those downloads of information sometimes
Mhm.
if we're connected. And I would think that it's no different on the other side. They get downloads of information from this side that tells them kind of, that's the only way I can think about it, because how else would someone on the other side know what's in my head?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, okay. So tell us about your NDE. Can you describe what you experienced?
Yeah, I was 22. I was a new mom. I had a 3-month-old. My ex-husband and I were in the car and went over. I was reaching into the back to adjust him in his car seat and hit a bump, and I hit the crown of my head as hard as you can imagine. Saw
On the
stars.
car.
Oh yeah, up on
Uh-huh.
back in the 70s, those lights, those overhead lights,
Yeah.
they were real. And I hit it so hard, and I knew, I was like, oh, I'm in trouble here, because I was sleep deprived. My husband was traveling, and I thought, how am I going to stay awake? Like, how am I going to stay awake? Because I was pretty sure I'd given myself a concussion. So I did my best. It was early in the evening. It was probably around 6 or 7. And I stayed up until probably 10. And I thought, well, it's going to have to be good enough. I've got a baby to get up with. I have to go to bed. And so there I was laying in bed. And the next thing I knew, I felt myself lift out of my chest, right from the solar plexus heart area, just lift right up. And I was in another space, in another place.
Wow.
And off to my left, I could see light. I mean, you remember, this is early 80s, 1982. None of the NDE stuff is out in public at that point. So this is just, was my experience. And I saw the light. It was off to my left. And I knew that everything I would ever want to know or could ever imagine was in that light. But I also felt the love coming from it. And the love was the thing that was, I was just completely undone. And up until then, because I had had a difficult childhood and because things had been a little rough, I really questioned, was there a God? And if there is a God, what is he doing here? And why is he not here? And why don't we see him in more concrete ways? And child that I was. And but in that moment, I knew that it was all okay, and that he had us and he loves us, and it was remarkable. And from there, I traveled to another space. The only way I can just, Venus, the picture of Venus, the Botticelli, it was like that, and it was that color.
Wow.
And I met my grandmother, who had recently passed. And she said, "You're not supposed to be here." And she said, "They don't know that I've come." And the next thing I knew, I was in our apartment. But the thing was, when I went back into the apartment, I was in the in-between. I was not in my body. I was not in this lighted realm. I was in a gray, very gray, sort of scary space. I don't suppose it had to be scary, but it felt that way at that moment to me. And I remember looking into the crib, down the hallway, into the crib with my baby son. And the next thing I knew, I was back in my body.
Huh.
So that's my NDE.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It was. Well,
And you
the
never,
thing that,
I mean, but you don't know if
Sorry.
you died, right?
I don't know. And that's why I say out of body, NDE, out of body. But the thing is, usually, at least from what I've figured out now, If it's an out of body, I don't know that you come from your chest and out.
Yeah, that
I've never
sounds-
heard anybody describe that before. And that was the thing that was so significant. And yet I was not meant to stay, or I would have had an in the light experience.
Right.
Mine was more to say, there is a light, there is love, you have nothing to fear. Death doesn't mean anything, and you've got work to do. That's kind of how I took it. So I went.
Yeah.
And you were just 22?
I was 22.
Wow.
Yeah. So did you wake up in the morning then on time for your baby, and were you okay?
Oh yeah, everything but like this, like deer in headlights. And for the next, I'm gonna say 6 months, it really rattled me in ways that I can't even describe, because I knew that every single thing I was looking at, everything that I was seeing was not what I thought it was. And I knew that consciousness existed and transcended. And I also knew that this is a poor expression of all that is. It's a very, this is a very mundane level. And to have to come back was hard, although I had, this child, so, and my husband and my family, and of course, certainly a lot of love around that, but the idea that this was where I was now, and it was just really hard to accept at some level. And I didn't have anybody to say, hey, what just happened to me? I don't
That's the
understand.
worst.
I wanted to talk to the priest, and my family dissuaded me. They all thought I was just crazy. At this point, they're just like, yeah, you've lost your mind. This is not possible. And nothing has given me more joy or pleasure than watching the books and the stories and the movies, and as the years have gone on. Because as the years have gone on, my mom especially really shifted in her perspective around these experiences that I was having, and grew to understand and accept them. And that was a really important thing for me.
Is she still alive?
She's not now. She's passed, but by the time she was getting into her very late years, she would say things like, my father passed in 2000, and she would say things like, your dad was out in the hallway last night. Like, oh, was he, Mom?
That's
so
interesting.
It was just so funny. And then she would say to me, I can't believe how warm your hands get when you do Reiki. I can't believe how warm your hands are. So, because she knows I'm a cold-handed girl normally, but so yeah.
Interesting.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Reiki. You're the first Reiki healer we've had on the podcast. Can you explain what Reiki is and how it works?
Yeah.
And how you're able to do remote healing. This is a real puzzle to me.
Okay. Well, there is no time and space, and we are all connected, as the shift is clearly laying out. We are all connected to each other. So, and it's not me. I'm only the conduit. So what I do is I open to that light that I saw and encountered, and I ask to be a pure and open conduit of that energy, that healing energy. And Reiki is really the format around which I learned to do that. And it's wonderful. It can't do anything negative. It is that light and that love. And it's coming down through my energetic field, through my aura, through me, and then out and into the client. And it goes where it needs to go, and it works in the way that it needs to work. And the reason that I can do it at a distance is it's no different than Larry Dawsey when he did the whole prayer, the whole prayer experiment.
Yeah.
Reiki is no different. Reiki is like a prayer, a healing prayer, only it's done over an extended period of time. And there are positions that you hold your hand in so that you're hitting all the chakras is what you're doing. And then once in a while, not always, but a lot of times, as I'm in someone's energy field, part of the reason that they're there, the injury or the illness that brought them to me, or even the emotional upset, will reveal itself, but only ever just so much so that they can then take that and work with that and understand that that may be a key to why they're experiencing, issues with their bodies.
Are you familiar with the work of Eric Pearl?
Yes.
Is Reiki
the reconnection.
Yeah, the reconnection it sounds like when you do the remote, it's similar to.
I think that it is.
Uh-huh.
I've never taken any of his classes. I read his books. I love to read. So I read, if you name a book, I've probably read it. I read his books when they first came out, and it was very impactful. But Reiki is something, it's all about energy, and it's passed from Reiki master, which just means someone who can teach. All that means is I'm someone who can teach Reiki. But it's passed from Reiki master to Reiki practitioner to Reiki master. And so it has a lineage, and it can be traced back to Japan. And it's really become so popular. And I have to say that I think those of us who have had anomalous experiences, and that covers a pretty broad range, as we all know, I think those of us who have had those types of experiences are particularly drawn to Reiki, because the most wonderful part about Reiki is, as that energy comes through to heal and support the person that I'm working with, it's actually healing and supporting me too.
Mm-hmm.
It's double whammy. So, and I love that about it. People will say, don't you get tired? And I'm like, absolutely not. It's just the reverse. I feel energized, and I feel really good whenever I'm doing Reiki on a consistent basis.
Now, have you ever done it on yourself?
Oh yeah, self-healing is the first level. So there's 3 levels. The first level is all about self-healing. And I teach first responders. I probably shouldn't out myself, because other Reiki people are going to be like, you do what? So I teach all the first responders in my life, and people who come to me, and massage therapists, they're level 1, and I do it for free because they're in people's energy fields all the time. And first responders, especially, the EMTs, the police officers, all the people who are going out for tragedies and mayhem, they are traumatized so often. They're living in a state of trauma. And there's not enough therapists on the planet to get through all of that. Wow. So what Reiki does is that it's better than all of the therapists on the planet. It's divine, and it just comes down through, and they can do self-healing. Once they've learned it, they can be using that to heal themselves. You never want to be in a situation where you have to be dependent on a person to help you, when you can, when I can teach them, and then they can help themselves. That doesn't mean they don't call me when things get a little crazy. But on a day-to-day basis, most of the people that I teach are out there using Reiki self-healing every day. That's great.
Are you working with specific spirit guides all the time, or does that vary?
I do. I have my spirit guides, and that's not something that I generally bring into a Reiki session in terms of conversation. I don't, share all of that, because they don't necessarily need to know my process, because that's personal to me. But yes, I have spirit guides that I work with. They named themselves Steward, which I loved, because Steward is right.
Steward
exactly.
or Steward?
It's kind of a D or a T. It doesn't matter. They don't care. And the reason is that either one carries your bags, and they're there to help you on the journey. That's what they told me. They didn't care. They said, English, American, we don't care which way you use the letter. Just know that that's who we are, and we're here to help you to carry the baggage. And, bless them, because that's just what I do. I give it to them, and I say, you guys deal with it, and you just bring me what's really essential for me to know. I also have a spirit guide who was a friend who passed, who is Native American, and he showed up almost immediately, and he gets in my business all the time. So he's very close, and he's someone who passed in, he passed in 2006, around the same time as my crazy synchronicity, within months of that. So he's part of my life, and his name is Two Feathers. And
Two Feathers? So that's cool.
Yeah, that's his alias. That's not what I call it.
Yeah.
that is actually, his name, and his native name is Two Feathers.
Suzanne, can you talk a little bit about the healing that you did for Trish recently? If that's okay for both of you? Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to. So what we did was I sort of said, okay, I'm going to work on you in the morning for the next 2 mornings. and I'm going to send you Reiki healing. So the way that that is done is that I treat you as if you were a client on my table and as if you were right in front of me. And as I said earlier, there are hand positions that you use for Reiki. And so I start at the back of your head, and then I start with your crown and work my way down through the different positions. And as I'm holding each one, the energy is flowing through. And so I think I was trained as a massage therapist, and one of the core understanding is that everything starts at the top. You know, if your back is bothering you, it's usually because there's something going on in your shoulders. Same thing, you know, carpal tunnel starts up here. So the idea that it just because you get referred pain sometimes, it doesn't mean that's actually what's going on. So my guides are wonderful, and they help me to understand what the underlying issue is. People will sometimes call it negativity. I don't, and I don't even think of it as blockages. I think of it as misqualified energy. It's habits that we get into, habits of thought, habits of, work, habits, around our life where it's just like a repetitive motion thing. For most people, that's what they end up coming in for. But you can repetitively motion yourself into a heart attack if you're not aware of your emotions and doing what you need to do in clearing, those chakras in your energy field. And really, my dream is that someday people understand that, and everybody does self-healing and learns that this is just part of life. Brush your teeth, clear your energy field, get in the shower. I clear my energy field when I get in the shower every day. So it's just easier that way. Yeah.
What I had a question that just went out of my head. Okay, let's see here.
So who is Reverend Sheila Applegate,
right.
and how did she help you?
Sheila. Well, Sheila has become one of my very best friends. But Sheila, so Sheila's story is really intriguing too. Sheila was on the Lockerbie. Sheila was scheduled to be on the Lockerbie flight with the SU students coming out of London. And she had a friend in London who said, stay for the holidays. And she did. And so she was not on the plane. I don't know if you all remember, but the plane that was shot down over Lockerbie, Scotland.
Oh, right.
Right. Yeah.
Or, there was a bomb, and her, everyone that she had gone to school with was killed, all of her classmates. So she too, through trauma, and I see this happen a lot. Trauma is a trigger for a lot of these experiences and a lot of these openings. And so she suddenly started to get information and know things about her classmates that she couldn't have possibly known.
How old was she?
She was young again. She would have been about 21, 22.
Wow.
And so she worked with a teacher up in Syracuse, and eventually became a teacher herself. And she's really a great teacher. And she helped me to be able to figure out what was mine and what wasn't, and to really define my gifts. And even now, I still study with her and take classes. I always study and take classes. When I said I still seek out thought leaders, I meant that sincerely. There are so many gifted people on this planet doing amazing work, and I want to know about all of it.
What sign are you? Are you
I'm
a
a
Libra?
Taurus.
Oh, a Taurus. Okay.
No. Surprise, surprise. So this is my theory, though. I think I'm a Taurus because it kept me grounded.
Yeah.
But I don't know. One of the other signs is Aries. So,
Okay.
no, excuse me, Aquarius. So
Aquarius.
that makes sense,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Rob's a Taurus also.
Yeah. We like our feet down.
Yeah.
So one of my questions now really seems stupid. How does Reiki deepen your intuition and psychic ability? I think you pretty much defined that.
Yeah. But what it does, though, is I think it offers a way for intuition to be explored without without just saying, okay, I'm going to become a psychic. I tell my clients, I'm not a psychic. That is not what I do. I am not going to tell you about your love life. I am not going to read your fortune, and you are not going to be able to go out and pick a lottery number. Don't ask me. That's not what I do. But what I can do and what I've learned is that anything that is in alignment with the client that supports their highest interest and their healing, it comes right through. So that's how it's deepened and connected my psychic ability.
Well, what do your son and your husband think about this?
Oh, so my husband had the best. So my husband and I have been married about 15 years, and I went. I make him a little crazy, but he said to me at one point, "I don't have to believe everything you believe. I believe in you." Mm-hmm. And that was just like ding, ding,
That's
ding.
Perfect.
Right answer. Now my son, on the other hand, is the eternal skeptic. And I visited him a few years ago, and he had a kidney stone that began to pass. And so in the middle of the night, he's like, Mom, I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to get up with baby. Mila is my daughter-in-law, she's out of town. You've got to be listening for the baby. And I said, okay. He said, I need to take a pain pill. I'm like, okay, you do what you need to do. And then I sat with my hands on him. He's like, you're doing Reiki, aren't you? I said, yes, I'm doing Reiki. And he's like, okay. So I sat with my hands on him and I did Reiki. And the next morning I hear him. It's like 6 a.m. and I'm like, he took the painkiller at like 3. What is going on? So I go out in the living room and I said, are you okay? He said, you are not going to believe this and don't say a word. He said, I passed the kidney stone. He said, I heard it hit. So he said it was substantial. And he said, and what did you do to me? I said, well, you know what this is, son. So it was really cute because he had a group of friends that had a couple Reiki practitioners in it. And I said, when you tell them that they're going to make me their queen, right? Just couldn't help it. He's always been so, he's very analytical and he's very smart, and and he always says to me, I don't know where you get your faith. And he said, the world doesn't work like that for most people. And I said, it works like that for me because I have my faith. And I understand that I saw something on the other side that that has become my touchstone. And I know that most people don't have that. And I feel so blessed, even though I had to leave, that I had that experience, because it does inform everything that I do.
I'm assuming he's not a skeptic anymore.
Nope, he's not.
So, Suzanne, what kind of other kind of healings, illnesses can Reiki help or cure?
It really, from personal experience, I work a lot with cancer patients, but I support them. I believe that it takes a village, and not everyone is going to be able to receive a Reiki treatment and spontaneously heal from cancer. But someone who is receiving treatment, using Reiki to support that treatment, and with someone who is open to the possibilities that everything should be tried, I think really moves people forward. I think it makes them feel safe. And I think there's a lot of judgment in healing communities. I mean, there's a lot of judgment out in the world anyway. But I've seen people who have been like, no, don't do chemo. You need to do this. And if you do this, you'll be fine. And then I see the other camp that's like, that stuff is ridiculous. Just do chemo. And so I've been blessed enough to work with a few doctors who are willing to consider that it's a body, mind, spirit proposition, and that you need to be supporting all of those things. So, so I do that. And then a lot of, I do tend to work with a lot of people with anxiety, especially younger people, and it's rampant right now. So
because of COVID or because of the world or what?
The world. I think it's a really, it's never been easy to grow up in this world, but I think it's particularly trying and difficult right now. So I do get a lot of younger people who are very anxious about the shape of the world. It's understandable.
Right.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that the Reiki began in Japan.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about the origins there? How did it develop? Do you know?
It was a Buddhist monk. There will be those who try to tell you that it isn't, and that it was something that has to do with Christianity, but I don't think that was the case. He was very learned.
Buddhism
man.
makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
And it's really about neutrality and stepping in as a healer, and allowing that energy, that life force energy, Reiki is life force energy, to move through you and into your client. I know that there are people who are much better around the history and understand the history of Reiki in ways that I don't. I never really focused on that, in all honesty. I just, you know it by its works. And I couldn't believe how much my life was impacted and the lives of the people around me that I knew were impacted as they were learning Reiki and then practicing Reiki. When I first started, I was working with a friend who is a pediatrician, and we would work with some of her patients with their parents' permission. Permission is essential to Reiki. You have to receive someone's permission. And we would work with some of her patients, and it was just astonishing to me to see the sense of peace and calm that would accompany the treatment. And again, I think that's why it works really well with people with anxiety. But there is a lineage that started in Japan, came to Hawaii, and from Hawaii, I think there were originally 20 people that were trained as Reiki masters. And from there, those 20 people have it trickled down, and all the Reiki people that you see now can in some way, shape, or form trace themselves back to those 20 people.
And
So-
what year was that about? Do you know?
I think it was and again, forgive me, and anyone who does Reiki or is a Reiki master will be like, why don't you know this? And I do know this, but not right now. I have to go over notes on this part. I believe it was in the 50s and 60s.
Okay.
It was quite a while ago, and 50s, I believe. And so it's a fascinating lineage. But when I went to massage school, one of the things that we talked about was that touch is essential to, we know that it's essential to growing people, babies, and to all of us. And it's really, is there anything more basic than touch and a hug and, putting your hands on someone?
Right.
And we all express it. We all naturally do it. Oh my goodness, that really touched my heart. You're making me crazy. I have people who make me rub my face. Those are the but we do this unconsciously, and the difference is that Reiki brings that to an art form, and you do it in full consciousness, and you're asking again for that connection to the divine.
What kind of illnesses or problems did you work on with these kids when you worked with the pediatrician?
We worked a lot. We worked a lot with, again, anxiety, ADHD, ADD, ADHD, that kind of thing. I have a brother who had stage 4 throat cancer, and I was able to support him as much as possible with Reiki, and he survived.
Wow.
Yeah. And if he had just gotten Reiki, it's just like having a broken leg. You need to do what you need to do. And he also received chemo, and he did everything that he was asked to do. But the difference, because I couldn't do massage on him, there was no other way to really, he was in pain and uncomfortable. And but Reiki, because it's a light touch, or can be done at a distance, could support someone who can't in that moment be touched, and still make them feel that sense of a hug. You can imagine a hug even if you're not getting one. And Reiki has that same essential quality to it.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So I understand that you live in North Carolina, and when we've traveled in North Carolina, I don't know why, but people have just come up out of nowhere and started wanting to talk to me about the Bible. And it's the heart of the Bible Belt, and or they mention the devil or Satan. And as a Reiki healer, do you get some of that too?
Well,
We're blowing her cover, Rob.
Right. That is part of the reason that I went to massage school here. I needed to understand, my husband is from here, but his outlook is a little different than that. And I was raised Catholic by a Methodist mother and a Baptist grandmother, but not Southern Baptist. It's a little different.
Yeah, there's
So
difference.
I kind of knew what the territory would require. And at the same time, I knew that this modality could be so helpful to so many people.
Yeah.
So when I went to massage school, the director of the school was absolutely wonderful. And she said, I'm going to teach you how to talk Southern. And she said, and I'm going to teach you how to connect with people who might otherwise be afraid.
Right.
And it's been very slow going, but the massage therapists are the people that have come to me initially because they knew me, because they trusted me, because they, because I told them right up, I'm not going to read your fortune, where none of that stuff is happening. And because they, every single day, they have experiences when they put their hands in someone's energy field or on them that they can't explain. They don't know why they put their hand exactly where it hurts. They don't know why they get next to a client and suddenly they're feeling that they have a headache. They don't know why their shoulder's bothering them. All of a sudden, my shoulder was fine, and then realize that the client is the one having the shoulder issue. So because they experience these things on a day-to-day basis, they're much more open to the possibility that there's more to God than the Bible,
Right.
as they're reading it at this point.
Okay.
So, and so I'm very respectful. I really try to be very, very respectful. And I'm certainly, everything about Reiki is around permission and around free will. People get to do what they want to do, but they know that I'm here if they need me, and I get calls.
Yeah.
So in a sense, I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
You just reminded me of something. In a sense, both Reiki and massage therapy, it's an empathic thing,
It is.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
okay.
think so.
Yeah.
I mean, there's technique to both. Both have a technique around them. But the people who really love it and are passionate about it and who are, end up being very good at it are people who use that empathic ability. And, that's why you can usually tell, you see the massage therapist, you see the Reiki, you can usually tell they have that same sort of crunchy granola energy.
Right.
They're all
Crunchy granola.
really, they hug each other all the time. I'm an Italian American, so hugging was it was a given for me. I was very comfortable with the idea of touch. And I think that that is a big part of it. It's not for everybody. And my son, my adult son is not necessarily of that same makeup. So for him, he's just a little more reserved. And so I think Reiki was harder, and up until the whole kidney stone thing for him to be able to deal with.
That's a great story.
Yeah. Now with the Reiki, you don't need to touch though, like massage though, right? Isn't that
No,
the case?
no. And that, as I said, it's one of the gifts, and especially, people have traumas, and sometimes their traumas won't allow them to be touched. It is not uncommon for people who have experienced physical trauma in their lives to react, when you get close to their throat, or have some sort of breakdown as you're working your way as a massage therapist. So the gift with Reiki is that you don't have to touch them. You can still do the work, because that light, that energy will work through all of this.
Have you ever worked with rape victims?
Molestation victims, yes.
Yeah, molestation.
Yeah. And again, you sometimes people, I mean, when they come for a Reiki session, most people don't even know what Reiki is. So they're coming in and someone has told them you have to go, and they're laying on the table. You're fully dressed. I use a light blanket just so people have that sense of security, and I'm working on them. But that's why, you get to the throat. There's certain areas of the body that you'll start to work on, and there will be a physical, visceral reaction. And immediately, and my guides are really good about giving me a heads up. It used to be that I wouldn't know until I was in the midst of something like that. But as time went on, they gave me a heads up. I think the most surprising story that I can share is the day that I heard a gunshot as I was working on a client. Ooh. And I clearly heard a gunshot. And this was when I was still a little newer about sharing my impressions, and still feeling a little insecure. And I said to him, "Do you want me to share what I experienced?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Okay." So I started from the top of his head. And as I moved down, I said, "Well, this is what I experienced here. And this is what I experienced here." And I said, "But when I got to your stomach, I heard a gunshot." And wow. I watched the color drain from him, and he grabbed my hand and he said, "Look." And I'm like, "Look." So I'm looking at his hand, and this is, how our brains work, because I don't know what I'm looking at. And then he says, "Look," and he shows me, and he's missing part of his baby little finger. And he said, "I was cleaning a gun and it went off." And he said, "It took my finger off and it grazed my stomach." Jeez. And he said, "And I've been having stomach issues ever since." And I'm, well, that's understandable. And I think I cried when I got home. I just to realize the power of this healing, this modality, and to feel like it's such an honor to be able to participate in it and be part of it, and to be the conduit for that. I went home and cried. It was overwhelming. It was really overwhelming.
Did he improve?
He did improve, and then he went on to become a Reiki level 1 student.
Oh, really?
And he's about to become a Reiki level 2 student. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, he became. I think he was pretty open before that, but that sort of sealed the deal and tied the knot. And so I see him often, and we've become good friends. But yeah, it was.
Did he study with you?
Yes. Yeah.
He's okay. Yeah. Now, how do the different levels work in Reiki? I mean, how do you go from a 1 to a 2, for instance?
So part of what makes Reiki is there's an attunement, and the attunement means that I'm putting symbols in somebody's field, in their energetic field. And the way I think about that is I think about it as the symbols are connections. So there's a physical, an emotional, and a distance. There's a distance symbol, and then a master symbol. And so you just physical, emotional, spiritual, and master symbol. And so you really just plug in to those symbols when you want to focus on a particular type of healing. The gift about being a master teacher is a healer, teacher healer. I don't know. Calling yourself a healer seems ridiculous, but I don't know. I've tried other words. Nothing else works. I'm not the healer, but being a master conduit means that that I have one symbol that I work with, and that it covers all of it. So that's kind of a good reason to become a.
I mean, is it a personal symbol?
No. These
okay,
are Japanese symbols. And as I said, it's distance, and physical, emotional, spiritual, past, present, future. They cover that kind of thing. And then eventually the Reiki master symbol, which covers all of it. And the symbols are placed in the field, in your field. And as I said, I just think of them as plugins. You just plug your energy into that, and that specific quality of energy starts to flow through you, and supports all the work that you're doing.
But you say it's placed in the field. You place them, right? And the person's.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and that's really, like many things that are a little more esoteric and metaphysical, that's done by intention.
Okay. That was my next question.
I intend to put those symbols into someone's field, and their intention is to use them to support their clients and the highest good of all concerned. Always the highest good of all concerned.
Fascinating.
So Suzanne, you've in your bio, you mentioned that you began Reiki in 2006, but you left a career in high fashion. So what did you do in that world?
I managed a bridal salon and was a buyer in New York and did fashion shows and sat in those front rows,
Okay.
and made sure I had good shoes and a cheap suit, and I was good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really fun career, and it was one of those things I just kind of happened into, and I loved it, but there came a point when I knew that this was the path that I was supposed to be on. Truly, though, only over the last year has it finally all started to come together in a way that makes me feel like, oh, all this work and energy and effort has been for now. This is all for right now.
Yeah.
So
Okay, when are you going to write a book?
I love to read books too much to write them. I've started 27 books at least. I love to write, but I'm really busy right now. And so everything right now is the doing. And maybe someday in a few years, I'll think about writing some of it. But yeah, I know, Trish, I'm like, you are a warrior. I know every day that you're there writing. I can't believe the number of books the two of you and Rob too. I say Trish only because she and I have been emailing back and forth. So I'm a little more aware of her schedule. But for you, I just can't believe the amount of words and beautiful works that you two have managed to put out. It's just astonishing.
We've been at this a long time.
Right. Yeah.
But still.
It's in a way, it's like Reiki, because I sit down and I have no idea what's going to come up in this next scene, and it just like comes to me, and I just start typing. It's amazing,
It is,
and suddenly
is it like channeling? Now I'm going to ask
like
questions.
it's like channeling.
I think it is.
Suddenly you have a chapter, and where did this come from? Because I had no idea what was, I have a kind of general idea of an outline of a story, but not the specific details. And that's just, for me, Trish likes to work late at night, but for me, earlier in the morning when I just have a cup of coffee and sit down, and it just starts, I start with one or two words, and it's just, okay, seem to be tuning into something and right for a bit, and it just takes off.
And
Wow.
for what it's worth, just yesterday Rob was looking for a couple of paragraphs.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that, John.
That was everything I wrote in one day. There was about 2,200 words, and what I had done is I had copied it just to see how many words that was, and then I was going to put it into a separate file from the book, and instead I hit delete. And everything I wrote just in the last 24 hours had just vanished. And so I was looking for ways, and John was trying to help me. And so finally it got to the point where I went to the gym for a while, and I came back at the gym. I just kept thinking about how am I going to get those pages back. And then I came home, and Trish was out shopping or something at the grocery store, and I just sat down and meditated a bit. And it just occurred to me that in my program, it auto saves, and I thought, oh, where does the auto save go? and so I Googled that, and I realized it's right in my Word program. There's something, you go hit file and go down, and it says your different versions of your history, and I click that, and there it is. I found it.
Wow, 2,200 words.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And I recovered. Actually, the last time it had auto saved, it was a couple paragraphs before, but that's all I had to make up. So that was real easy. But
Wow.
it's scary when that happens, though.
I can only imagine that would be just terrifying. I
Yeah.
still, everything I write, I have my pen, I have, my pencils, and it's so lame, but that's probably why it takes me so long and why I've started 27 and then moved on. Because
Yeah.
by the time you start, you lose interest.
27 by hand?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'm just being facetious. I
know.
I have not really written anything start to finish, but I have worked on a lot. I have a lot of ideas because I think that the world is really struggling, and I think that healers that are committed to forgiveness and are committed to helping people to see their own goodness, and maybe especially where I am, and feeling that sense that they have value, and that God is a loving God. I think that those things are really, really important. So maybe eventually there's a book in that. But.
Yeah, I think it would help people, especially in this transitional time. It's
Yes.
Yeah. So
especially
John,
with the self-healing.
John, do you have any
Yeah,
questions for Suzanne?
Oh no, I think you guys have covered it, and fascinating conversation and really interesting, Suzanne. I really appreciate you coming on. This has been a great show.
My pleasure, John.
Yeah. So how can people reach you, Suzanne?
So I am still undercover. I don't have a website. I
get such a kick out of that. We blew your cover. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know you blew my cover, Trish. I am at light-hearted being, all one word, lighthearted being 8, because it's a universal number,
Right.
at gmail.com.
Yeah. It's like infinity on the side.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's exactly it. That's why it's got to be an 8.
Right.
Now, okay, so what? Okay, you're undercover because you're in that part of North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you could
I
do a
am,
website.
yeah.
You could do a website.
I probably could. My son keeps nagging me now. Of course, he keeps nagging me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he says, Mom, you really should. And honestly, I just haven't, because it didn't seem like it was just a word of mouth thing.
Right.
And people would come, and so at some point I may put on my grown-up shoes and just get a website.
I just think it would be helpful, to people who don't know about Reiki, or who, are looking for answers or relief or whatever.
I will take your advice. I will take your sage advice.
Yeah.
Put that to practice. I'll let you know when I get my website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, can your son build it for you?
Well, he can certainly help, I'm sure.
Okay.
He just turned 40, so the answer is always yes for anybody under 40, right?
Yeah.
True.
Well,
So,
thank
John,
you very
when is
much.
this, wait, when is this
Okay.
going up, John?
So I couldn't unmute. So this would
Tonight?
be. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Bernard Bateman goes up today,
Okay.
and then I think this will be next week, as far as I know. So this will go up on what, the 9th? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's right.
Okay,
Today's the
sounds good.
2nd. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll send you the link when it goes up so that someday you can put it on your website.
That sounds great, Trish. Thank you.
Thank you
This
very
has
much.
been so much
Susan.
fun. Thanks so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
And thank you
This
for-
was so much fun.
And thank you for working on my ankle. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Anytime, really. Just reach out and let me know.
Okay.
People call and text me all the time, and they're like, "Can you help?" And yes, the answer is yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Thanks so
nice
much,
to meet you
Suzanne.
both. Okay.
Take
Bye-bye.
care.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye now.